All right, sort of breaking news here. Today, on Thursday, the GOP controlled House of Representatives has passed a revised version of Trumpcare, or the American Health Care Act. Basically, Trumpcare version 2.0. It passed with a vote of 217 for and 213 against. So barely, but it did pass. Now I want to go over some of the changes that were recently made to the bill. Some of the changes that made it a little more palatable to the ultra right wing psychos that were the only reason that this turd of a bill didn't pass the last time they put it through. Now, some of those changes, the changes, by the way, were being made until the night before the vote. So they were still changing this thing up until a few hours before they actually voted on it. That kind of gives you a little clue as to how desperate they're getting to pass something. Now, some of the biggest change is with essential coverages and protections for pre-existing conditions. One of the and the biggest of that, the main one being that under the new and improved Trumpcare 2.0 plan, states will be allowed to opt out of certain Affordable Care Act rules, like essential coverage, or like essential coverage and like pre-existing condition protections. And now they won't be able to just flat out deny coverage to people with pre-existing conditions, but they will be allowed to charge them whatever they want. And this will be on the states to decide, so depending on how this goes moving forward, make sure to stay on your state representatives and state government. Just, crawl up their ass and make a little winter home for yourself. And because the more this as time goes on, the more and more the Republican-controlled national, federal government, keeps wanting to push more of this stuff off on the states. So then they can say, be able to come back and say, oh, hey, we kept the protections. If they didn't keep them, that's your state. Your state did that. We didn't do that. It's a way of them trying to push off blame. And also, like I've said in previous videos, state governments are easier to influence. But anyway, so that's the big one. Basically, if a state decides to do it, they can repeal, they can opt out of the essential coverages, which basically that is the element of the Affordable Care Act that requires certain treatments or certain cares to be covered. For instance, emergency care or maternity care, or anything like hospitalization. Before there was before, that's something people don't think about, is before the Affordable Care Act, if you went to have a baby, that might not be covered under your health plan. If you were hit by a car and had to go to the emergency room, they might not cover that. So, yeah, that was an important thing that was put in, and now it'll be up to the states as to whether or not they want to stay in it or allow it to continue. And the same with the pre-existing condition. Right now, like I said, it has been changed so that a state can obtain a waiver and basically people and get permission, sort of, to allow insurance companies to charge whatever the hell they want for someone who has a pre-existing condition. They do require them to offer coverage, but they do not restrict how much they can charge. And see, this goes back to the whole GOP thing of, oh, we want, and how they actually said it. They said it every time it came up. Oh, we want to ensure that every American has access to care. Oh, you have access to care. You have access to care. You got access to care. And again, the reasonable response is, well, shit, I have access to buy a house in the Hollywood Hills, but I can't afford that shit. And it's the same thing with health coverage, or it's about to be, depending on how this goes, is that, will be fully within their rights for an insurance company to charge you, $1,000 a month for coverage if you have a pre-existing. And, but by God, you've got access. It doesn't matter that, you bring home $1,100 a month at working minimum wage, and for insurance to cover you, they want $2,000 a month. That's a detail. That's not important. What's important is that you have access. And that is the Republicans' plan for the future of your health care. Now, this, also too, this has been shoved through without, like I said, they were changing it. They were putting more changes to this bill less than 24 hours before it was voted on. So, of course, the Congressional Budget Office, the ones who said that the original one was going to cause 27 million Americans to lose their coverage. That group, the bipartisan or nonpartisan, it's like not political party related. And also, by the way, when they were calculating how much Obamacare was going to cost, the Republicans absolutely love these people. Now, well, they don't really know. They're just guessing. We don't really need their input. And they don't want it either, which is why they're ram this through so fast. So, I don't know, and I'm not sure how exactly it works. I'm hoping the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, will go ahead and do their evaluation, because really, I think, with any of the states that actually apply for those waivers so they don't have to provide minimum fucking standards of coverage or are allowed to charge whatever they want for people with pre-existings, I will bet money they're gonna end up having even more people lose their health insurance. And, but it's still, and also too, at the moment, well, actually, before I get to that, I would just like to mention, really, the only reason, see, this kind of goes back to what I said in my last video when the first one was shot down, is that the only reason that the first version didn't get passed is because it didn't go far enough. The reason they weren't able to get the votes was because of the Freedom Caucus, the ultra right wing, the friggin' right wing psychos, because they wanted to cut deeper. They wanted more people thrown off their health coverage. They wanted more tax cuts for their wealthy donors. They wanted more restrictions and less restrictions for the companies. And they wanted, to gut Medicaid even more. Because this still ends the Medicaid expansion in 2020. Conveniently enough, after they get reelected. But, why else do you think they do? Why they did it? They're doing this they're doing this. The only reason they're doing this is for their donors. They're not doing it for you. They're not doing it for the people. All right. Why do you think? What do you think that they passed legislation that they passed a bill? Do you really think that they passed a bill that has a 17% approval rating because it's what the people wanted? Because it's in the best interest of their voters? They passed it because it's what the donors want. It's what the money wants. And the only people who are even more of a bunch of friggin' money-grubbing corporate whores than the Democratic Party are the Republican Party. They don't even try to hide it. They haven't tried to hide it for years. And they will, and this is exactly what they been wanting to do. This is what their donors, what the money's been wanting. They want those tax breaks, that the few dollars, the small percentage of their income, like additional bit of their huge fortunes that they had to pay, so that more people in this country could go to a doctor when they were sick. They don't want that. No. They want that money back. And the Republican Party will stand up, will like sit up and just and bark like a dog for them and do their bidding. And to hell with you, to hell with the voters, to hell with you, your family, your kids, your grandparents, your parents. Fuck them. They don't care. They just want to come through for the money and keep that gravy train going. That is it. So if you vote, you pull a lever or whatever, punch the thing, bubble in the little box for a Republican, that's what you're voting for. You're voting for your kids' after-school programs to be cut. You're voting for your health care to be taken away. You're voting for your wages to stay low. You're voting for less and less rights, for a polluted environment with filthy air and water that causes cancer. That's what you're voting for. Make no mistake about it. Ted Cruz, Burgess, Angus something. All these people. Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, they don't care. Paul Ryan, like the last time that they tried to push through this steaming pile of crap, like the day before the vote, I think it was, like Paul Ryan was having a lunch with health insurance industry lobbyists that fucking day. You think he cares about the voters and doing what's best for them? No, he doesn't. He cares about the money, and he has no problem showing it. Just like last recess, when conveniently enough, oddly enough, he just couldn't find the time to go and face his constituents. But he found time to meet with donors, didn't he? Anyway, that's about all I have for this. I'll post a link to my earlier video to give you more of an overall like what's going on. Because I said I really just kind of hit the high points of what has changed. Everything else is still the same. They're still gonna phase out the Medicaid expansion in 2020. They're still gonna they're still going to change the way the subsidy is worked, so it's like a tax credit instead of a subsidy where it's like a set dollar amount, and all this stuff. Again, I go over it in more detail in one of my previous videos. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.